like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today we are taking a deep dive into Newcastle versus Tottenham from January 4th, 2025.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Newcastle, coming into this match, they were on fire, like 5 wins in a row in the Premier League. Totally. And this was looking like it would be their 6th. But the win, it sparked a lot of controversy.
A bit of a howler from the ref.
Well, we're going to dig into that. We're talking about a goal that a lot of people think shouldn't have counted. Some pretty heated reactions from both coaches.
And spicy.
It was. And then we'll take a look at the handball rule itself, get into the nitty-gritty.
Always a fun one.
You know it. So first, let's set the stage. Tottenham, they actually scored first in this match.
Okay.
Dominic Solanke, I'm sure you remember him from Bournemouth, right?
Yeah.
He put Tottenham up 1-0 just 4 minutes into the game.
Early goal.
It was. But you know what's interesting? England's new head coach, Thomas Tuchel, was at the match.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And he got to see 2 English players score the first 2 goals of the match.
Oh, okay.
Because 2 minutes later, Anthony Gordon scores for Newcastle. Like, it's tied 1-1.
Right.
But there's a problem.
Okay.
A potential handball by Joel Mutton in the build-up to the goal. So here's how it went down. The ball hits Joelinton's hand, goes to Bruno Guimaraes, then to Gordon for the goal. Now, VAR takes a look.
Nail-biting stuff.
Oh, it was. And after what feels like forever, they decide the goal stands.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Now, why was that?
Well, this is where the handball rule gets really, complicated.
Right.
According to the FA, Joel Linton's arm was in what they consider a natural position. And they said the contact was accidental. Plus, he didn't score immediately after the handball. The ball went through another player.
Right, right.
So by the book, the goal, it was allowed.
So they were technically right.
Yeah. And even Mike Dean, he's a former Premier League ref, agreed with the decision. He was on Soccer Saturday that week. But, can you imagine? You're Tottenham, right? How frustrated would you be?
Oh, I can only imagine, yeah.
Yeah. And their coach, Ange Postecoglou, he did not hold back after the match.
Let me guess, he was seeing red.
Basically. Here's what he said, and I quote, "On any other day, on a fair and even playing ground, we would have won that game. I'm just really, really angry as I've ever been in my career, that they were denied the right rewards for a fantastic performance."
Wow, yeah.
Like he was not happy.
No, clearly not. He feels like they got robbed.
Yeah, totally. Like this call cost them the game.
Right.
But then you have Newcastle, and I'm sure they saw it differently.
I'd imagine so.
Yeah, their coach, Eddie Howe, he acknowledged that the ball did hit Joelinton's arm.
Okay.
But he said, and I quote, "I believe that his arm's down in a natural position." So basically he's saying, look, we played by the rules.
Right, the rules as they were called on the day.
Exactly. So now you've got these 2 totally opposite perspectives. But what I find interesting is this one incident, this one call, could really affect both these teams going forward. Tottenham was already under a lot of pressure. But how much do you think this decision added to that pressure? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how does this impact them mentally?
Well, when something like that happens, it's got to be frustrating. And when you're already feeling the pressure, feeling like things aren't going your way, it's easy to let that frustration kind of get to you.
Right.
It can throw you off your game. Maybe you start to lose focus. Maybe you make rash decisions.
Makes sense. Instead of playing their game, they're overcompensating.
Exactly. Trying to prove a point.
Yeah.
And that rarely ends well.
It's like it knocks them off balance, both mentally, but also like strategically.
Totally.
It makes you think, could this have messed with their passing accuracy, their defensive coordination, like their whole performance?
It absolutely can. Football, it's not just physical, right?
Wow.
It's a mental game, too. And something like this, a controversial decision, it can totally screw with a team's rhythm, their confidence, especially when they're already struggling.
Yeah, totally. We'll come back to the impact on both teams a little later.
Okay.
But first, let's get back to the match itself.
So after that controversial goal, what happened? Did Newcastle take advantage of that, lucky break?
Well, I'll tell you. Oh, Newcastle. They're not going to let something like that go to waste.
Right.
Especially with Isak on their side.
Yeah, Isak. He's been unbelievable this season.
7 straight games with a goal. Come on.
It's insane.
It is. And he did it again in this one.
No way.
Oh, yeah. 38th minute, boom, puts Newcastle in the lead. 2-1.
So they take the lead right after that controversial goal.
Yep. And you could really, I don't know, you could almost feel the momentum shift. Like that goal, even though it was, maybe a little iffy, it gave them this extra boost.
Almost like a mental edge. Totally, yeah. Like it was meant to be, like they were destined to win.
That's so interesting. It's not just the team that, feels like they got cheated that's affected by a call like that.
Right.
But the team that benefits from it, too.
For sure.
You said Newcastle, got this surge of energy. Did that actually show up in their game? Did they play differently after that?
Oh, yeah. I think so. I mean, they were already playing with a lot of confidence, but this just added to it. Maybe their tackles were a little, more aggressive, their passes a little more creative, attacking more fearlessly.
So they just, stepped it up a notch?
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to, measure it or whatever, but you could see it. You could feel it.
It's almost like, I don't know, when you're a kid, you do something you shouldn't.
Like sneak an extra cookie.
Yeah, exactly. You get away with it, and suddenly you feel invincible.
Totally. And that feeling, it can spread, throughout the whole team.
Ooh, contagious.
Yeah. Suddenly, everyone's got a little more swagger, more belief in themselves.
Right.
And the other team, the one who feels like they got screwed over, well, they might start to doubt themselves a little.
Makes it.
Second guess their choices. Play it safe.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but man, those little shifts, those mental shifts, they can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And in this case, it seems like Tottenham never really bounced back from that, early hit.
Nope. They tried, but they just couldn't break through Newcastle's defense. Couldn't tie it up.
So final score, 2-1, Newcastle.
That's right. 6 wins in a row.
Okay, so on paper, pretty straightforward. Another win for Newcastle. But as we've been talking about, there's so much more to it. You've got that controversial goal, the totally different reactions from the coaches, the impact it had on both teams' mindsets, and then, of course, the result, which just cemented Newcastle's position as a real threat in the Premier League.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget, that win took Newcastle to just 1 point behind Chelsea, who were in 4th place. So, yeah, things are getting real interesting at the top of the table.
Huge. They're right there in the fight for a Champions League spot.
Absolutely. Stakes are high.
And on the other side, for Tottenham, this loss, it just makes their situation that much worse. Right?
Yeah, for sure. They were already having a tough season, especially at home. And now this, I mean, the pressure on Postecoglou, it's got to be immense. Think about it. No wins in their last 6 Premier League home games. They're actually closer to the relegation zone than the top 4.
Yikes.
Yeah, things are not looking good.
What a contrast, right? Newcastle, they're flying high, tons of confidence, and Tottenham, they're struggling to keep their heads above water.
It really makes you think, what if that goal hadn't counted? What if the ref had called it a handball?
Right? How different could things be?
Yeah. Maybe Tottenham holds on to their lead. Maybe they at least manage a draw. Maybe that's the turning point of their season. And for Newcastle, who knows? Maybe a draw, maybe a loss. Maybe that slows them down a bit. Maybe that little bit of doubt creeps in.
It's crazy how much can ride on one decision, one moment in a match.
Totally. Football, you just never know. Anything can happen. And the smallest thing, like a bad call by the ref, it can have a massive impact.
Exactly. And in this case, that one incident, that one goal, it started this whole debate. And not just about this game.
Right.
It makes us think about the rules themselves, about VAR, about whether technology can really solve these issues, about how much human judgment still plays a role. We've been talking about the handball rule, but now I want to ask you, the listener, knowing what we know about this handball rule and seeing how this whole game played out, would you have allowed that goal?
Tough one.
Yeah. It really is.
But I guess that's what makes this whole situation so interesting,
Right.
There's no easy answer. It's not just black and white. There's so much, gray area, room for interpretation.
Yeah, totally.
And even with VAR, you still have the human element, right? Someone still has to make that judgment call.
And like we've seen, those judgment calls, they can have a huge impact.
Absolutely.
Especially with those Carabao Cup semifinals coming up.
Right. Big games.
Newcastle. They were going up against Arsenal, and Tottenham had a tough one against Liverpool. So how do you think that controversial goal, all the emotions, the talk around it, how do you think it affected both teams going into those matches?
Well, for Newcastle, it could have gone either way, to be honest. On the one hand, they won, right? So that could given them a boost, like, okay, we're doing something right, we can beat anyone.
Right.
But then all the talk about the goal, all the controversy, maybe that became a distraction.
Takes their focus away from the next match.
Exactly.
What about Tottenham? I mean, they were on the wrong side of that call. Do you think that just added to the pressure they were already feeling?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially going up against a team like Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, they were already struggling. And then this happens. It could definitely shake their confidence even more, make them question themselves. And going into a game against Liverpool feeling like that, that's a tough spot to be in.
It's like they're carrying this extra weight,
Totally, like a burden.
A burden of injustice.
And that can weigh you down before you even step onto the pitch.
It's crazy how much the mental side of things matters in football.
Oh, yeah. It's not just about how good you are, how fit you are. It's about, your mindset, your resilience. Can you bounce back from a setback? And sometimes one incident, one controversial moment, it can really test you.
Wow. This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey. We started with Newcastle on this amazing win streak.
You're rolling.
Then we got into this wild match, all the controversy with that goal, the handball rule, and now here we are talking about the long-term impacts it could have.
And it all goes back to that question, right? Did Newcastle really deserve that win?
There's no easy answer.
Nope. And I think that's part of what makes football so great.
It's a game of small details, fine margins. One decision, one amazing play, even just a little bit of luck, it can change everything.
Absolutely.
And sometimes those decisions, those moments, they lead to these big conversations, debates that last long after the game is over.
We end up talking about the rules, about technology, about what it even means to play fair.
Right.
And those are the kinds of conversations that, that keep things interesting. They make us think. They challenge us. They help us understand, understand the game on a deeper level.
I love that. So as you watch those Carabao Cup matches, or any match really, keep this deep dive in mind. Pay attention to those little things, those moments that could go either way, those controversial calls. And think about how they might affect the bigger picture.
Because sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected places.
Beautifully said. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
Sound me